All right, I think we're live here. I hope everybody's having a great Tuesday. Gonna start digging in a little bit deeper into Assetto Corsa Competizione, and as we get through the 7 videos I've decided to put together here, um, rating system. So let's talk rating system tonight, and it's quite innovative. I don't know if everybody realizes, at least from my opinion, it's quite, of course, whatever that's worth. I have played many, almost every video, racing game there is. I don't have every one of them, but I've got about 7 of them. And this is part 3 of the series about a case for Assetto Corsa Competizione and why we're having a lot of fun on this, and I hope others will join us. But the rating system, this is going to be a little bit technical, but I think it's interesting for people that are into sort of how the sausage is made and why this will go. I'll show a little bit of this, show some of the game footage, talk about how the progression goes, go through a lot of the documentation here. So it'll be about, I think, 18 to 20 minutes, something like that. So as you can see, there is obviously a racer, how-to, rating system, indicators. When you enter Assetto Corsa Competizione, they really want to kind of progress you and help you develop as a driver. So we'll talk about what all these are, but at the highest level, you start with this track competency. They want to help you understand the tracks, and you get that through achieving consecutive clean laps. It just kind of walks you through that. And once you get to a certain level, and I'm going to talk in detail about these, they'll start moving on to consistency. You know the track, so are you able to be consistent in driving on the track? And then you look at car control. Are you driving the car under or over the limits? I tend to drive over the limits, which a lot of people do. And then sort of once you have the basics down, you enter into sort of the competition mode as what's your pace. And that pace is really judged against the leaderboard of others. So this is really interesting. If you know iRacing at all, I'm not saying I'm an expert at iRacing, but I know the safety rating is important and licensing is important. But, a lot of people farm iRacing. They just kind of, you hear them when you get in the race. Just go around me. I'm just getting my safety rating up. This is a lot more in depth. You cannot get to the highest levels of this just by hanging around in the back. You have to have good pace and a lot of other things. Then there's also the safety, SA for safety, and that is really interaction with opponents. So it's not just hanging out in the back. It is sort of how you are interacting when opponents are around, performing clean interactions. And then racecraft is sort of everything you do as a race driver, just all the, kind of all of this, right? With the exception of competition rating, which is a little bit different. Kind of compare the two here. So racecraft is sort of everything you do in a race. Let's say you're a solid driver. You think of yourself as someone who lets others participate. You're not just wrecking everybody. I was just in a multiplayer race where some guy was really shouldn't have been there. But you do sort of all the right things. You race hard, and you also sort of enjoy the competition part of letting others race hard against you. That's racecraft. Competition, which has been announced and it's actually shipping now, but is basically did you win or lose. So let me start up some racing, and we'll get into the technical details of these, how they operate, how they interoperate, what they mean to the system, and what the vision was of why they went to so much trouble to create this. And I'm also I went through all the forums associated with this and have looked at how this launched versus how this has changed. So you'll get the benefit of some of the time that I spent going through looking at what the developers posted. I mostly focused on what the developers posted about this and how they were going to change. And there's a significant number of changes coming out in the next week or so. We are at 106 since May 29th, 1.06. Incredible movement in those 6 versions. 1.07 is going to be amazing. I hope. I'm crossing my fingers. If you haven't seen my number 2 video on this, please check it out. I think the breakthrough in what they, at least what they're explaining to us and going to how the tires are going to be modeled, could really be something that every sim is going to have to do if it's as good as they say it's going to be. And let's just hope. But let me jump over to show you how this is shown in the game or in the sim. So when you come into the sim, you have your career, championship, special events, single player, multiplayer, and sort of the basics of saved games, gallery options. But as a driver, you get your rating. You have your total rating. I'm a gold driver. There's actually platinum, bronze, and silver. And you can see that I'm trending almost flat, maybe a little bit down a couple of weeks ago, but about flat here. So I've got some work to do to get my rating up. They kind of explain what these are. Again, TR for track competency, CN for consistency, CC for car control, PC for pace, SA for safety, RC for racecraft, CP for competitive. I haven't spent a lot of the time in the CP servers, mainly because they're still getting those up, and there isn't, I think that a lot of people are not spending time in there, at least from what I've seen. So track competences, I'll get into some of this, but you can click on these. So you sort of get track competency by doing 4 clean laps. You get all 3 stars. I just haven't spent much time at Nürburgring. And it just goes up and up and up. Then you have sort of consistency. And if you click on, let's see if this is the one. Yeah, here we go. Kind of, I think the data's been reset a couple times as they improve it through the different versions. But you can see, 49 laps. Our consistency of 49, 6 laps, 23 hours ago. Consistency of 61. So you can click on these to get a little bit more detail. Here you can see my car control. I tend to overdrive about half the time. Sometimes even more than that, maybe 50 to 60%. I tend to overdrive the car. And you can just look through and see, how are you doing on car control versus overdrive versus laps. Pace is really a ranked thing where you have to go in and work against leaderboard. I haven't done that. I just did my first leaderboard test the other day. I've been spending a lot more time in multiplayer and league racing. So pace will go up as you sort of do this. So you can see that when I tried this last night, I was 1,417th out of 2306. So not a great test, but at least it moved a dial. Then you have safety rating. This is an interesting one because servers can be set up based on a lot of these different ratings, and a lot of the servers that are out there say you have to have a safety rating of 80% or greater. So easy to get 80% really by close racing, and everything counts in Assetto Corsa competition. This is a little bit different. I mean, if you're practicing, you're in quals, you're in racing, you're by yourself, you're with other people. Everything counts towards these scores. Now, the amount they go up is less based on a lot of different things, which I'll explain. But it's very much like real life. So you can't, if you think if I think about it, if I was a race car driver and somebody trusted me with the chance to drive a Ferrari, 200, actually a $500,000 car once they're all set up, maybe more than that even sometimes. I can't just go out to Monza and try to improve my times by wrecking through that chicane, wrecking the car 5 or 10 times, and say, okay, I can't drive at 200 miles an hour. I have to drive at 150 miles an hour because I've wrecked 5 cars in a row. So everything counts. So and there's been a lot of requests for sort of a game mode where you just go out and drive and just do whatever you want. but they haven't implemented that yet. They're thinking about it. Although I sort of like this in a way. So I don't know. Sometimes it's irritating. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes I just want to go and try that corner at Paul Ricard and not lift at all, or go through the spa, that one uphill turn without even full speed to see how many times I can get through there at full speed. But if you think about it, people have died on that corner, and if you want to simulate something, you really can't just. Wow, I think my headset just shut off. Let's see. Are we still on here? I hope it's. I just charged it. Let me see if it's still working. Test, 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 test. Test, 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 test. All right. Well, I think we're there. I don't know if we really. All right. So that's safety rating. Racecraft is just being turned back on. I talked about this. This is, sort of everything you do, and then competition level. So let me put something here in the background as I start diving into the details of this. I think this is the one I was going to play. I'm getting ready for a league race, so I've been doing some testing and racing at Paul Ricard, which I really hated when I started out on it. I mean, I literally thought there's no way I can drive this track. But after spending some time on it, I actually kind of like it. It's sort of fun. So let me make sure this thing is looking at the right one. So I'm going to move that up. And I think we're good now. I think that will stay there. And I can start walking through this document here. All right. So I kind of went through these, right? You kind of progress through these, and then I showed them in the game. And let's talk about the vision of what they decided to do here. Let me just double check my volumes, make sure it's not too, should be good. Tell you what, man, doing this streaming is a lot of different things you got to deal with. The interoperability of software, volumes, different things that don't work every time. So anyway, this is a pretty cool track. Once you get used to it, it's actually quite challenging, with a lot of overtakes possible because of all the long turns, and so it can be a lot of fun. So anyway, let's dive into the tech here. So the vision, ACC will have quite a number of ratings and sub-ratings, which we talked about. Some of them are focusing on personal driving behavior with the goal to be a good friend to help you improve, which I've talked about. What's your track competency, what's your car control. Some are purely competitive, like competitive rating or racecraft, and will connect you to other drivers, like I talked about with the racecraft and safety rating. How if you're racing close with somebody, it can actually improve that. And then they have multiplayer related ratings, used to keep things clean, improve the multiplayer experience. Overall, they hope to improve the experience and fun, but get rid of some of the typical sim racing things where you can just work around it. So it's an innovative approach. It's a challenging approach. I applaud them for trying to get this right. I think that they've made a lot of changes since they've brought it out, and are really trying to move the ball forward. So 6 of those ratings will be connected in a progression. So you can kind of see this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, which is I don't know why it's giving me that, but 6 of these ratings will be connected in progression, where we try to detect the individual driver's capabilities and move the focus on the most important aspects. Those ratings are expressed in a 0 to 100% scale, and will unlock the next one once you achieve 50%. So if you start at track competence, to get to consistency, you need 50%, and just work your way around the tree that I showed earlier. While you're progressing through the ratings, you will either prove or practice driver-focused categories like track competency, consistency, and car control. After that, the rating will suggest to start becoming competitive and advance you through pace, racecraft, and competition rating. So, 1 second, my TV has decided to give me some kind of stupid notice. Okay, track competence, the very first thing you run into. During this stage, every track has 3 medals to earn. I showed you guys that in the beginning, what those 3 medals are. You start out very easy, you do 1 clean lap, you get a star. And it requires you to learn the track, and they give you colors as you're learning track. Say blue feedback means you're slow. Green is perfect. Yellow and red indicates mistakes or overdriving. And track rating cannot get any worse at any time. So it's track competence. So it's just something that always goes up. But this, once you get to 50%, you will unlock consistency. And once you get 4 clean laps, you'll get all 3 stars. So just a real kind of a simple thing to do, but just get everybody up to speed of what are the tracks in the Blancpain series. And most of them people know: Spa and Monza, Brands Hatch, but there are a couple that are not that well known. So you'll have a chance to maybe. I was not that versed in Paul Ricard as an example. There's one or two more. So, all right, consistency. The whole point is to be able to just drive without ruining the car or messing up otherwise. It is the ability to consistently drive lap after lap, and one of the key features of real racing, but for some reason largely underrated in the sim racing world. If you think about it, I mean, I don't know if you guys watch a guy named David Perel on YouTube. I highly recommend checking this guy out. The reason I recommend David Perel is because he is a real life Blancpain racer. He's either pro or pro-am, and he races in GT Sport. But the really cool thing about it is he goes through and explains his tactics and strategy for real life races as well as GT Sport races. And just you can learn a lot from watching him. And I just think about him, explaining, how to get into racing, how he got into it, what the investment was, and he's actually offered to help others get into it. But I just think about the contract that they signed where they allow you to drive, a $500,000 Ferrari. So obviously, you've got to be consistent and not wreck their car every single time you go out. So this is consistency. Being consistent first means you are trained to find a pace. You can do reliable laps. Many laps without a spin are a major problem. This will help you understand the different lines and setups, if your setups have any actual impact. During the consistency phase, the rating system will assist you with feedback for each corner, where green is just like I talked about earlier, green is very consistent, yellow, red, not so great, and you kind of go through that same as the other one. Similar to track competency, the consistency or CN rating can hardly drop once you have driven a bit. It's very important that the first 3 ratings are considered as friendly companions to help you train. Once you have managed to achieve 50%, you'll unlock the driver focus one, car control, and still keep an eye on your consistency rating from now on. Basically, anybody should be able to have at least an 80% in CN. So car control, obviously that's pretty self-explanatory. There was something I wanted to, oh yeah. So you often hear racing is about the limit. It's true, but riding on the limit literally means on a very thin line of your tire's grip, and going faster than that is actually slower and much more dangerous. I don't know if other people have experienced this, but I've gotten frustrated with tracks before and not really been able to improve my time. Then I'm like kind of lazily driving around behind maybe an AI or another driver, and I look down and my freaking lap time is either the same or better or really close to what I was when I was pushing really, really hard. And it serves as a reminder that, sometimes not overdriving the car can have a huge impact. And if you think about it, I'm sure anybody that's spent any time in racing, if you're sliding around the corner, you know you're losing time. Obviously, a little bit of grip edge is not bad, but anything beyond just sort of touching the edge is going to be a time loss, sort of event. So, so car control rating is meant to be your personal friend. The rating is able to slowly decrease based on what and how you do it, but it's a very slow process and easy to catch up with some good practice sessions. If you reach 50%, you're ready to start and to get serious and enter your first competitive race, and that's pace. And as I talked about earlier, pace is really part of an event where you're doing hot lapping and hot stinting. Hot stinting is multiple laps for an aggregate time. Hot lap is just your fastest lap, and you're ranked in a worldwide view, and that sort of affects your pace. So now, kind of giving a little bit of an update on this. So in the forums, the developer said car control is only looking at physics data of the car combined with a few baked in where am I definitions in the track. Someone had asked them, are you just looking at do you follow the line? Is that how you determine car control? And the developer says just following the line wouldn't tell anything about how the control is. It's too prone to change in ACC due to traffic, a rubber track where you can obviously get more grip, and then both wet and dry. So car control is just looking at the physics data of the car, so like G-force and things like that. All right, pace. I love this. Having proven that you can handle your GT3 car, we are ready to enter the first competition. Pace is the first rating that cares about lap times and track performance. Those are measured in different event leaderboards where you will challenge other drivers. During these special events every month, it's like I talked about hot lap, hot stint. Let's see, it's interesting here. Your best rank is your pace rating. 50% means you're exactly in the midfield. 100% means you have a world record in one of the current event leaderboards. So I'm sure some of you who are amazing aliens can hit the 100% and be a challenge for you to try to beat everybody in the world. They do post those results on the forums. During release 1, you can pick the hot lap event 1, which is basically what you expect. Dry, daytime, perfect but fixed conditions. And they also have some other ones now that it's come out into 106. There's rain events, other things like that. But they also have the hot stint. The starting conditions are 100% comparable as well, but the goal is to drive as many laps as possible within a given time. Your leaderboard rank will be the result of the laps done and time needed. While the hot lap mode is nice, display of potential quickness, you will need to be much more of a complete race driver to excel in hot stint, because you have to drive many consecutive fast laps, not just one. I pulled off the best lap ever in one lap. I have a friend of mine that I hang out with. He is actually a lot faster than me, but he can't keep it on the track. So I just have to wait, a lap or two, and I know that I'll be driving past waving. So I think hot stint would be where I would want to compete with my buddy G in that case. All right, safety rating. This is a description. Let's see. We are excited to present you the first implementation of a safety rating in ACC. Traditionally, the safety rating is used to detect clean drivers in multiplayer and create special servers where they can race without disturbance. So, you sort of group the higher safety rating people together, and hopefully they can have a great race. Secondly, the safety rating is implemented in a way to consider clean and good racing versus the number of incidents caused. I used to call this accidents per opportunity to do so, which translates to trust. Now, this gets really interesting, and this is where it starts to get innovative. If you have a high safety rating and you have low accidents per opportunity to have an accident, you will not get online behavioral warning points. But if you have accidents, you'll get online behavioral warning points. And the BWP is derived directly from the Blancpain GT series. As a result of that, you earn trust while being in dangerous situations close to other cars. Now this is cool. So the hotter the race action is, the more trust drivers gain. It obviously peaks out if you drive bumper to bumper or even side by side, but take care. You also need to have your car under control and avoid accidents. You will gain gradually less trust for less dangerous situations, and none when you are driving outside of a certain range of other cars. So you gain less trust for less danger and more trust for more danger and where you don't have accidents. So if you're driving in the middle of the pack and you're punching, you think about that. Compare that to iRacing, where I can hang around in the back and I can get my iRating up over time as long as I don't blow it too much or just get into a low density server. And I love iRating, so I'm not dogging it. I'm just comparing my understanding of the two. So not saying. And I'm a member and have almost, a lot of the cars, etc., etc. But think about this. I mean, this is trust for avoiding opportunities to have accident and maintaining control of the car. This means you also rely on basics. Knowing the track is vital. You need consistency to stick with other cars and you need to have the car under control. And of course, my headset keeps cutting off, and that's never happened before, so I don't know what is going on. So hopefully I didn't lose too much time there. But let me see if folks can still hear me, hopefully. All right. So you can see, I think I can see that all those other things build up to this. Track knowledge, car consistency, car control, and pace are all needed in order to get a high safety rating and avoid online behavioral warning points, BWPs. Contacts and accidents will score online BWPs based on the severity of the outcome of a contact. Therefore, you won't see online behavior warning points for a short bump, which doesn't even impair the other car, while the amount of online BWPs gradually increases for pushing the car out of control. Think about this. Minor bumps, no BWPs, no behavior warning points. Major ones, if you push someone off the track, you're going to get more. Full points are assigned when the other car is going far off the track, spins out, or crashes into another car. That is, if they really are able to pull this off, this is amazing. And this is probably one of my biggest beefs with some of the sims out today, where you can be, the race hasn't even started, someone slams into you, and you're already taking hits for safety, incident points, stuff like that. And this gets even better, and this is where it starts to pull away and sort of set the standard for other sims. The third aspect of the safety rating is it is prepared to analyze accident situations. To be very clear up front, the core reason is not to distribute online behavioral warning points according to guilt. The primary reason is to understand when the driver made a mistake and is being able to give him appropriate feedback. What went wrong? What rule was violated? How to avoid such accidents. We do understand that it's frustrating to be rewarded with points, with warning points for accidents where you are not considered guilty. But it is getting really complicated here. And I'll keep this short. He says, I'll keep this short. The system is designed in a way, this is where it blows me away, that you will obviously have OBWPs even as a clean gentleman racer. I meant it is racing after all. If you are good, you will also have earned so much trust that a few online behavioral warning I can't say that fast. Online behavioral warning points won't hurt your safety rating, and it is entirely possible to have 100% safety rating with significant OBWPs if you also have earned significant trust. Keep in mind that the rated servers may look differently to what you know from previous safety rating implementations. We will have the single player entry barrier and every interactive feedback of rules and observations. This should lead to considerably higher quality multiplayer race. So I think just to kind of what catches my mind here. So if you're racing safely, you have a high safety rating, you have great trust, you have few BWPs, someone slams into you, it's not going to affect your safety rating as much. If they have a very low safety rating, a lot of low trust, they're going to take more um, negative points for running into you. So it sort of rewards you knowing, it's sort of like this. We know racing is rubbing is racing. Um, that's fine. You get less points for rubbing. Somebody knocks you knock somebody off the track, you're going to take more points. It's going to happen to everybody. I don't care how good you are. You're eventually going to run into somebody. But if you have a very high OBWP, you're going to take less hit to your score. So it sort of figures in that, hey, we trust this guy or this gal. That person probably, in most cases, that person is probably not the person that caused it. And lastly, there's an advanced discipline of accident avoidance. Even if you didn't do anything wrong, a system wouldn't appreciate awareness, cleverness, and evasive skills. Couldn't be considered good, right? I couldn't describe this better than quoting from one of the many discussions. I think our race is stopped here. Keep that going. I couldn't describe this better than quoting one of the many discussions I had with real block plane drivers. Now, this is David Perel, the guy I talked about earlier. I always feel guilty in case of an accident, no matter how it developed, because there's a better version of you that could have avoided it, right? And David says exactly. So anyway, secondly, the safety rating is implemented in a way to consider clean and good racing versus the number of incidents caused. I used to call, I think I already covered that part, accidents per opportunity to do so, which translates into trust. You can earn trust while being in dangerous situations and close to other cars. The hotter the race action is, the more trust the drivers gain. Let's see what else is interesting here. All right, I think that's that part. Contacts and accidents will score behavioral warning points based on the severity of the outcome. I did talk about that. And I talked about the third aspect, which is that they're trying to give us feedback to help us be better drivers. So, unlike other ratings, both performance ratings will unlock both racecraft and competitive once you get to 15%. All right, so let's talk about racecraft. Once you hit 50%, the racecraft rating will unlock. It is meant to measure the relative performance between drivers, again 0 to 100%. The top level description is quite simple. Come in first and you will have a good racecraft rating. But of course, reality is deeper and only one can finish a race in the first position. One of the worst disadvantages of running traditional performance ratings is that they develop considerably high frustration potential. It is fun while you're increasing your rating with every race you participate in, but once you've reached the rating that expresses your actual strength, you can only increase it further by improving your factual driving performance. On the other hand, you can lose a lot by doing mistakes, or even worse, get taken out by another driver. This leads to the phenomenon that good performance ratings tend to decrease drivers' contribution. They just don't race as much as they like to. And I have experienced that in iRacing. I get a really high rating going and I just keep getting wrecked. Somebody just keeps wrecking into me. Then I stopped qualifying because I figured I'll just let all the people wreck in front of me. Then I can try to go last to first challenge. It just gets so frustrating when someone just wrecks into you. Even during the lap before the race starts, people are running into you. So Assetto Corsa Competition or Racecraft rating addresses this issue by not taking too much care of the result, but focus on the fight and permanently calculate the rating instead of just using the standing at the end of the race, where a single mistake can have a huge impact. Technically speaking, this has two paths. First, the system builds a relationship to cars that are close and considers them being in a fight. You enter the fight when your car is near another one, 0.3, 0.4 seconds away from the other one, and ends situation when the other car is, a second to a second and a half, or an accident occurs. While in a fight, both drivers are continually averaging their ratings. So if you can follow a driver with a much better rating, your rating will improve. If you are followed by a driver that is rated worse, you are expected to be quicker and you should be able to draw away soon. The longer this takes, the more racecraft will be transferred to the person following you, lowering the net result when you finally build your gap and end the first fight situation. Obviously, you score points by doing so, but the net result decreases the longer the operation takes. Dude, that is just awesome. I mean, they expect you to race at your ability, not just hang out. Overtaking as such does not affect the rating in a special way because any outcome is already covered by the math described above. If you're behind a driver that is rated worse, you are expected to pass him or her and draw away. So the longer this takes, the less RC rating you will earn, up to a point where you can even lose a bit despite eventually passing him. So you have got to race like you're in a real race in order to increase your racecraft. You get more points if you have a higher rating by by passing and moving on, or if a slow driver comes up on you, by not letting them hang around too long. Please note these adjustments are tiny and only give real results after many races and fights completed. The closer two drivers are in their rating, the less movement will happen. So if you're basically the same as someone else, you're not going to get a lot of point movement, up to a point where only major events are able to create tiny adjustments at all. In the second path of racecraft, the RC rating will consider the race standing. It should make a difference if you're running in the first or last place. So in the long run, even an alien that is basically never involved in a fight but wins any race will see his racecraft become very high. But the process will be a lot slower than if he were involved in serious combat race situations. Obviously, this will be one of the most important metrics when we try to find good multiplayer races to assign you to. Speaking of multiplayer, the way or how the rating math works makes it very suitable to be used in single player as well. The AI drivers have a racecraft rating as well. It's based on their strength, aggressiveness, consistency, even considering the local difficulty you have chosen. So you can set the difficulty of the AI so that, if you want to have a higher movement in your racecraft, set the difficulty higher. Just like the safety rating, racecraft is not a multiplayer thing only. Go out, compete with the AI, and prove your racecraft. I find the AI to be amazing in ACC. I've gotten up to 94. I started at 88. They're very good. They're almost a little bit too good in that they don't wreck into each other often enough. But it's helping me improve, which is what I want, so that I'll do better in my league races. A notice about the AIs. With this release, each AI driver has a unique character derived from his real-life performance during the season. Expect gold and platinum drivers to be considerably faster and more resolute than bronze drivers, but also be aware of special characters within the brackets of the FIA. Watch drivers, observe their behavior, build trust, learn who you need to take care of in certain situations. It will take some time, but it will pay off. So every AI driver has a racecraft rating. You can see it on the back of their cars. They're pros, pro-am, amateurs, and they're going to compete in that way. All right, finally, we have worked our way around the tree to the competition element here of the race, of the racing chart or racing tree. With 1.0, we finally applied the last stage of competition, which is the big brother of racecraft. So RC, for example, um, more or less ignores starting races from the back or spinning, having damage, or leaving a race. The competition rating is completely different in this aspect and is a result-oriented, merciless result, exactly how motorsports is. Once you enter the qualifying session on a CP server, your rating is at stake. Leaving for mechanical issues, any reason, will unrecoverable put you back at the back of the field. In the end of the only relevant facts are who finished in front of you. I think this thing turned off again. Test, test, test. Okay. Um, who finished in front of you? Who finished behind? In the result, your CP rating will raise or fall and reflect your performance. Understanding the conditions, reading the race, keeping out of trouble, consistency strategy, and sometimes gambling on slick tires will define your success as much as your raw pace. All CP servers will additionally run 3 track medals, so you have to have all 3 track medals as a requirement, plus a safety rating of 80 to 90%. That is the tree. A couple of notes that have come out that are coming out in 1.07. The CP rating will have a shift once the backend update goes live. The build-up process was based on comparisons, amount of the other drivers you had during the qualify and race sessions would gradually move your CP from 0 to the actual value. However, this led to confusion, especially as you consider your rating go up while losing or stay at low values despite winning a lot. The new build-up process will add a perspective on the points gained and hopefully make more sense without explanation. That means if you had only a few races, your CP number may change, but no worries, the real ratings behind that aren't affected and you will end up exactly at the same CP rating after winning a few more points. Winning would also mean being in 18th over 19th, but of course that would mean only a little bit of progress. So they're doing some work on the CP. It's a little bit technical. There may be some adjustments in the ratings that are coming out in 1.07, but you can test, 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 test. So anyway, I got cut off, but the CP basically will account for the number of people in the race as well as where you finish in the race. Even if it's, you're second to last, you'll still gain some CP because you beat somebody. So let's see what else we got here. So CP is going to change based on the length of the race. So longer races, you have more chances to gain more CP. I think that's about it for the interesting stuff. And racecraft changes. Oh, here's some random questions that were on the forums that I thought people might enjoy seeing. Let me start another race here. How does AI strength affect racecraft? Each AI defined by strength and wider brackets of aggressiveness have their own rating, so comparable AIs are treated like players. There's a bit of throttling, so you cannot endlessly gain the highest racecraft. But on a higher level description, it's the same method. For online gameplay, I believe the system will work fine, but offline, I'm not sure. Actually, so the answer is, I think it'll work very well because of the rankings have a few inherent, let's see, because of the service pack integration. ELO rankings, which is a ranking system, ELO, have a few inherent problems like islands or not so many participants in general. We use the AI as a distributor platform, which speeds up the process and gets rid of a few edges. But again, it's at least prepared that you can get somewhere just by using AI, but the top scores will require multiplayer action. All right, so the AI has rankings. You can go out and spend all your time there, but you can't get to the very highest level unless you're in the middle of multiplayer. Let's see. I think that's most of it. I'm looking through to see if there's anything really interesting here. You can turn off the rating system if you don't want to see it, although it'll still be calculating in the background. You can turn it off. People are asking for that. All right, I know that I had a little bit of sound problems tonight. I hope it wasn't too bad. I'm going to go back to the rating system one more time just to kind of encapsulate what we've been talking about. And I know that was very technical and some of it was a little hard to, the sentences weren't really worked out that well in some of the verbiage. But so again, we have sort of this total score, gives you your TO score. Track competences is, then this is the first in the tree that I showed earlier. Let me show that tree one more time in case someone's looking at this late. It's also the thumbnail of the video. Let me just pop that up. If I go here, blank that out. Here's the tree. Track competence, consistency, car control, pace, safety, racecraft, competition. And if I bring that back up. All right, so we have the track competences is just basically up to 4 clean laps to get 3 stars. Consistency is, as we talked about, laps driven without issues and sort of to do consistent laps over and over and over. Then car control is, are you overdriving or underdriving the car? I talked about the fact that I tend to overdrive it a little bit, maybe 50 to 60%. Pace is based on the events, special events, how you rank against worldwide ranking. Safety rating is your ability to avoid incidents where they're available and to build trust. You can see that my trust on this last race was 10. I got 1 warning point with 13 kilometers driven. Trust was 4 in the race before that. Trust was 12, no warning points, 35 kilometers. Trust was 8, no warning points. Then you go to the worst part, the worst ones where I had no trust and 2 warning points. So you can kind of help improve. But also the innovation of this is interesting because if you have a high trust, you're going to lose less points. If you just have a bump with somebody, it's not that big of a deal. You won't lose points. But if you hit somebody, knock them off the track, you're gonna be assigned points. But if you have very high trust, you'll be assigned less points. And then racecraft is basically just getting turned back on, but it's sort of all the things around racing that sort of this stuff all adds up to. And then competition is, where did you finish and who did you finish in front of. So I'm going to go listen to this and see how bad the sound was because I got cut off a couple of times because of my mic. If you like this, please subscribe. Leave me a comment. Let me know you're out there. I'm getting lots of views, but I got 1 comment. And hope people are watching, but not leaving me much feedback. So hope folks will let me know what's up, what you're racing, what you like, what you don't like. Let's have a conversation. Subscribe, hit the bell. We got a few more of these to go. Take care. Bye.